Welcome back, scholars. We're here for another interactive read aloud. Remember, interactive comes from inter, meaning between, active, meaning act or to do. And so this is something you do between yourself and the book. Remember those inter-prefix words like intermission, interstate, international, between nations, intercom, interfere, interrupt when you come between people. All that inter and knowing words helps us to understand the interactive read aloud. As we continue to grow and build that strong reading life, don't forget that it's important that you're reading every day independently on your own. Research says that you should be reading 90 minutes a day to grow your reading and grow your learning and grow your vocabulary all that it should in a year's time. We really want to work to make that reading a 10 out of 10. So today's book is called Sophia Valdez, Future Prez, and it's going to give us a chance to get to know our character, Sophia. That's our main character. We're going to get to know her as a friend. That's one of the things we've been talking about in class, is how we just really become part of that story, and this book is going to give us that opportunity. So I always like to begin with the genre of the book, and the genre is a way for me to decide what kind of hat do I need to wear as a reader. So our two main areas are fiction and nonfiction, and this book is a fiction story. First of all, I use the word story. The job of a fiction book is to tell a story. So this is going to tell a story. Sometimes they're realistic, sometimes they're not. This one happens to be a realistic story. Nonfiction, its job is to teach us things and inform us about things. So put on your fiction hat as we start this story. So before we begin our reading, we always want to set that plan, have a purpose to our reading, what we're going to focus on while we're reading. Here's our target for today. Use adjectives to describe the traits of a character. So we're going to, as we're reading, we're going to focus on that main character, Sophia Valdez, and think about what words would we use to describe her. Then at the end, you're going to be asked to interact through writing with the story by answering this question. What are two words that describe Sophia Valdez? Give evidence from the story to support your answer. All right, I think we're all ready to start. I will pause us partway through just to discuss a little bit so we can cement our learning as we're going and summarize as we go, and then we'll be ready at the end to interact and answer that question. Enjoy! Sophia Valdez, Future Prez by Andrea Beatty, illustrated by David Roberts. Sophia Valdez, Future Prez. Sophia was a baby who got things done, helping her family before she turned 1. She and Abuelo went out every week to help elderly friends around Blue River Creek who couldn't get out and about on their own with no place to gather, were stuck home alone. Raking the leaves, taking pets for a walk, or just dropping by for a treat and a talk, Sophia Valdez did as much as she could for her family and friends and her whole neighborhood. A dreamer, a doer, a real-life go-getter. Most people like good, but Sophia liked better. Wait a minute. Sure, this genre is fiction, but did you notice it's also in poetry? Love it! Each morning, Abuelo walked Sophia to class. They walked home again along Blue River Pass, making plans, munching cookies, Abuelo and girl, except for that Tuesday when Pup saw the squirrel. With a howl, Pup took off, racing all through the town, over, under, beneath, and around. Sophia scrambled to try to keep up with the hollering man and that bellowing pup. Up the squirrel ran to the top of a hill made of leftover junk for the local landfill. They reached the tip-top of that mountain of trash, which jiggled and broke with an ear-splitting crash. Down they all tumbled and hit with a thud on a moldy old pumpkin surrounded by mud. Ouch, cried Abuelo. He struggled to stand. A dangerous mess, he said, grasping her hand. The next day, Sophia walked to school solo, but it wasn't the same without her abuelo. This isn't right, declared young Sophia, who glared at Mount Trashmore and got an idea. The very next morning at dawn, she planted a sign at the front of the lawn. She stood back and smiled, and Pup gave a bark. Get rid of Mount Trashmore. Let's build a new park. Each of her neighbors had something to say about benches and fountains and places to play, meeting spots, gardens, a basket for bees, a rubber duck pond, and a kiosk for cheese. She drew every thought on her map of the park, which was perfectly perfect by a quarter till dark. She drifted to sleep in her soft, cozy bed. Then, bam! She woke up when a thought smacked her head. Her heart skipped a beat as she realized each one of her neighbors had said, "Let me know when it's done." They all thought Sophia could build it alone, but how could one girl do so much on her own? The weight of that thought made her tender heart ache as night thunder growled and she lay wide awake. When dawn brought a storm and the gloomy sky wept, and the heart-sick Sophia finally slept. Abuelo baked cookies when Sophia got up. He gave her a bagful and sneaked one to Pup. He blinked back a tear as he hugged his Sophia. "For courage," he whispered. "Te amo, mi vida." Sophia's knees wobbled. She felt weak inside. She looked at his ankle and quite nearly cried. Though she didn't feel brave or courageous at all, Sophia Valdez went to face City Hall. Okay, readers, this is a great place to pause and review so that we can cement the ideas of the story in our mind. We always kind of want to pause and summarize as we're going so we don't get to the end and then be like, I can't remember the story and have to have it read all over again. These pauses help us to better remember. One of the things I like to do is think about those characters, the setting, and then the problem. We're not going to get to the solution because the solution should come at the end of the story. So our characters, of course, are Sophia Valdez. She's our main character. And her abuelo, that's another main character that's doing it. Then we have some townspeople, but those are our two main characters. So if I was cementing it, I'd say, okay, there's Sophia and her grandfather. And her grandfather always takes her to school. That's an event, but it becomes important because one day on the way to school, actually on the way home from school, they're walking past Mount Trashmore, which is kind of like their city dump. And remember, the grandfather falls and gets hurt. The getting hurt is what gives Sophia an idea of how she should change her community. So she goes back and she has this idea that she should form a park, and she tells all the neighbors and they're like, yeah, and they have all these ideas. Then she goes to bed in the middle of the night. She's like, wait a minute. They think I'm going to do all this by myself. And she's kind of scared, as we are when we take on big projects. So she wakes up in the morning Her grandfather gives her a hug and tells her he loves her, and she's off to talk to City Hall. Let's see how it finishes up. Sophia, little Sophia, and big City Hall. The mayor's office sent her to room 401, the Blue River Creek Department of Fun, which sent her downstairs to room 302, the office of duck ponds and cool things to do, to the office of monkeys, the department of cheese, the division of fountains and meetings and bees, then down to the basement, so musty and cramped, where all the town's papers were sorted and stamped. And that's where the clerk said what no one else did. You can't build a park. You're only a kid. The word smacked Sophia down in her heart. Her plan was kiboshed before it could start. I think, said Sophia, I think that law's wrong. But her second grade voice didn't sound very strong. The clerk said, clearly it cannot be done. Do you have any questions? Sophia said, one. If you were me, and if I was you, and he was your grandpa, what would you do? Well, said the clerk. Then she said nothing at all. She thought and she thought. Then she sent out a call to every employee throughout City Hall. The entire government of Blue River Creek crammed into the office to hear Sophia speak. But her words jumbled up and her cheeks turned bright red as a dozen emotions rushed into her head. Her heart beat so loudly she thought it would crack. The crowd leaned in closer. Sophia leaned back. Then her arm brushed the edge of the old cookie sack. And that was the moment when Sophia first knew being brave means doing the thing you must do. Though her heart cracks with fear, though you're just in grade 2. Okay, scholars, I can't help myself. Did you see her guard dog came up? Then she brushed that sack, and then she gave herself courage. She talked to her amygdala, and boom, she's going to be courageous. Couldn't help it. She took a deep breath, looked the mayor in the eye, and though her knees wobbled, she held her head high. Sophia started talking. She spelled out her plan, why it all mattered and how it began. And once she got rolling, she had lots to say about meeting spots, monkeys, and places to play, and the other ideas for things they could do to help town elders and other folks too. She had thoughts on the library, thoughts on the zoo, and perhaps a way to combine the two. And all right, cried the mayor, go start a petition. If the town wants a new park, we'll form a commission. And so young Sophia got right to work with some help from her family and pup and the clerk. Then others joined in, not all but a few, like Miss Lila Greer and the kids in grade 2. Sign our petition, please. Scientists need parks. We love parks. Get rid of Mount Trashmore. Sí, se puedo. We need more green. Somewhere that's green. Architects for parks. There were hearings and surveys and taxes to figure, then bulldozers, cranes, and a blue bigger digger. They all built that park. That's how it got done.
with the hard work of, by, and for everyone. But it began with the dream of one person, just one, who laced up her shoes and then led the way to help Blue River Creek get a new place to play. Now every evening till long after dark, the town comes together at Citizens Park. They all hold this truth to be self-evident, that Sophia Valdez could grow up to be president. Until then, Sophia, that real-life go-getter, helps Blue Creek get better and better. Citizens Park.
All right, what did you think of the story? I love this story. It makes me think about my community and the community of Fond du Lac and what I might want to do to change that. But remember what our target was. Our target today was use adjectives to describe the traits of a character. So we have this question that we have to answer. What are two words that describe Sophia Valdez? Give evidence from the story to support your answer. You're going to use that question to answer the problem or answer it. So I'm going to use part of that question. I'm going to say two words that describe Sophia Valdez are, and then I'm going to think of two describing words. Think of she's the type of person who, and then describe her with two words. Try to stay away from words that really don't give us much information, like she's nice. But if you give a little bit deeper one, like, I'm not going to tell you. And then some evidence from the story that explains it, because this is a two-part question, so make sure that you answer both parts. The evidence just means you're thinking of things that happened in the story. We call those events. And you're going to use those events to explain your answer. And remember, do not stop until you're proud. Good luck interacting with the book. I'll see you next time. Bye.